Hey guys, we made it to season 5 of the Us People podcast. I'm your host Savia Rocks, and in this season, we aim to empower and embrace creativity through diversity as we dive into the fascinating stories and experiences of a diverse range of individuals, highlighting their unique perspectives and creative endeavors, from artists and entrepreneurs to innovators and activists. We celebrate the power of diversity in driving creativity and fostering positive change. Join us as we engage in thought-provoking conversations like
I made myself intentionally homeless in pursuit of my purpose.
We're aware that a lot of people want to present and they were in my position, and what's worse, they weren't a white male, which is a joke that's even still a thing.
I think my family never ever say you can't do something, so full of support for whatever dream. If I said tomorrow I want to fly to the moon, they'll probably say I wish you all the best, Mel.
So guys, I just want to say thank you for supporting the Us People podcast for the past 5 years, and we look forward to sharing another new theme song with you. Let's go.
Hi everyone, my name is Louise Hamlin, and I'm the author of WhatsApps from Heaven about bereavement and signs from the afterlife, and you're listening to the Us People podcast with Savia Rocks.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Us People podcast. I'm your host Savia Rocks, and today I have the lovely Louise here with me, who is the author of WhatsApp from Heaven. Louise, thank you so much for taking your time to come on the Us People podcast. How are you?
Oh well, Savia, thank you so much for having me. And I'm great.
Oh, it's so nice to have you. You can see that nobody else can see you, but I can, and you have such an abundant smile coming on the show, and you seem so calm as well, so I really love that. So Louise, my first question for you is, could you tell me about your background of where you grew up and how that influenced you to be the person who you are today?
Okay. Well, I was born and grew up in Manchester.
I know Manchester.
Yeah, and in fact, my ancestors were peasant farmers up in the Peak District, and then, they gradually migrated to Manchester. And I was quite a serious and studious child, and my parents sort of liked this. And so I sort of did what was wanted and expected of me, and I went to Cambridge and I read law and I became a lawyer.
Yeah, I read up about you being a lawyer. What was it like for you to... Obviously, it was high expectations, most probably from your parents also.
Yeah, well, it was the one thing that I was good at, doing schoolwork and passing exams. So I was pretty hopeless at sport. And, I think girls in particular, they want to please.
That's true.
I went to schools where it was good to do well in exams. Oh, and I wasn't musical either. I couldn't do anything really, but sort of academic subjects. And so I did that, and I enjoyed it.
Oh, I like it. At least you found something that you did like. I think a lot of people are in the world and they wait a long time in life to find something that their heart actually enjoys to do. So even though you say that you weren't good at music, you still found something that you did like.
Yes, that's true. That is very true.
See?
I'm not sure that I had a passion for law. And you meet some people and their job is their passion.
That's true.
And you think, cool, you're lucky.
Aw. If you did... Looking back, Louise, what would you say to yourself about, is there anything that now you realize that you are good at or you wish you would have done in the past that maybe you would have had tempted to do?
You know, I rather wish now that I'd become a scientist,
Ooh.
because with everything that's happened to me, I've become really interested in life and the universe and quantum mechanics and energies, all of that. And I was at a typical girls' school where, you know, science wasn't really pushed.
Yeah.
I can remember I used to do my Latin homework in chemistry, and, you know, that was obviously a sensible priority because Latin was far more important than chemistry. So I
Oh.
wish now I'd paid attention and done science.
At least I know what you're going to come back as. At least I know if you came back and you was reincarnated, you would come back as a scientist, which is pretty cool.
I don't know, Salvia. I don't know.
Aww. Aww. Can you define who you are as a person, but also who do you see when you look in the mirror? But on the flip side of that question, Louise, has there ever been a time in your life where you have looked in the mirror and not recognized the person staring back at you? How did you manage to come out of that and then come back into a positive place where you feel that you belong?
I think that it took me many, many years to become the person that I am, and to be a person who's comfortable in my own skin. And for many, many years, I sort of wanted to please people and didn't really have that internal ballast.
Yes.
And I sort of needed external validation. And I think that it comes through doing a lot of work on yourself.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I definitely agree with you there. I think it's hard, but also at the same time with self-love and compassion for yourself. That's why I always say be kind to one another, but more than anything else is be kind to yourself, because sometimes we forget that.
I think kindness is extraordinarily important. And do you know what really sort of touches me and sometimes causes me to tear up? And that's the kindness of strangers.
Yes. Yes, that's one thing I definitely live for, and that's kindness. Even if I know we're not always going to know if somebody is going to give the kindness back to us. But as long as we give the kindness, then somewhere along the line it will be given back to us. And that's the part that I love.
Yeah, I think that kindness is like, you know, throwing a stone in a pond.
Yeah.
And the ripples go on and on and on.
I like that. I might have to use that somewhere. I like that. So let's talk about your book. What actually made you decide to write your book? Because it's such on a specific subject. What made you decide to write it?
The book is about, it's an account, a very truthful account of my bereavement, and also the signs that I subsequently received from my husband, which, you know, were against all expectation. And while it was all happening, I was writing a journal, and I sort of found it quite helpful to write down, you know, how I felt, what was happening, what people said, and what happened. Anyway, and then funnily enough, one day I just thought, do you know what? I think that it's been so extraordinary. I'd like to write about it and tell the world. And also, when I was bereaved, I read a lot of books for help and comfort and information. And there were an awful lot of books about bereavement, which were written by people from the outside in. And I wanted to find books that were written by people who had actually been bereaved
Yeah.
and could then, describe their journey. And I didn't find that book. So I also wrote the book that I would have liked to read.
I like that concept. And even when you're saying it, I go by energy a lot of the time in my life when I speak to people. And I can still feel the energy of bereavement to some extent, Louise, when you talk to me.
Okay.
And
I don't think that bereavement ever totally leaves you.
no, I don't think so either. Because I don't know if you'll agree, but part of loving someone and losing someone is actually bereavement, because you never ever lose the love for that person. So you'll always have that bereavement every time you think of them, because your love will always be there for them. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a beautiful thing to actually have, because that person's memory is never lost and it's never gone.
The love carries on regardless, both ways.
That's true. That is very true. I would love for you to talk to me about, for anybody who doesn't understand what bereavement is, because we're already talking about it, but some people might call it something else like pain or loss. But in your interpretation, could you describe what the word bereavement means to you?
Well, it means feeling as though you've had half of your body ripped away from you. It means feeling as if inside you're nothing but a deep churning lake of dark water. It means that you don't feel you have any edges, you don't have any identity, you just feel totally and utterly lost and bereft.
It sounds so, it's such a hard subject that people don't often talk about. It's a bit like grief. They say there are many stages of grief. Do you believe that there are many stages of bereavement? And if there are, could you tell us what the stages, because you've been through it, Louise, you would be the ultimately best person to say abundantly and honestly how you feel about the stages that you have been through.
Well, yeah, I can only talk about my experience.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that other people have different experiences. I mean, for me, to start with, I was totally incapacitated by the grief. And, it was a huge win if I managed to get out of bed in the morning and clean my teeth and take the dog for a walk. And that was all I could do. I just felt totally untethered, if you like, and only half a person. And then gradually I found ways to survive. I found living in the moment was really helpful.
Yeah.
I couldn't think about the past because that reminded me of what I'd lost. I couldn't think about the future because that was just terrifying, absolutely terrifying to think that, there was a future without my husband. But I found that I could just think, okay, I've just got to get through this morning.
Yeah.
I've just got to get through this afternoon.
Yeah.
So that helped. And meditation helped.
Yeah, I like that one.
I did a
Meditation
lot
does
of
help.
meditation, and that helped calm this sort of churning water inside. And being out in nature helped. And I'm lucky because I live in the country. It must be difficult for people in cities.
Yes.
But, if you can get into a park or something, it just really helps.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It is hard I'm in the city, and unless I decide to, you can walk around in your neighborhood if you want to, but there's always going to be something that reminds you, especially if you lived in the city with your partner or whoever it might be. There's always going to be something that reminds you of that person. So you might have to drive out and go for a walk where the air is abundantly different. And that's so important.
I guess so. You know, when you are bereaved, you don't stop thinking about that person.
That's true.
And so it doesn't really matter if, you know, you pass somewhere where you used to go and have a coffee with them or something, because they're in your thoughts the whole time anyway.
Yeah, that is true. That is really true. Let's talk about, it's hard when you talk about these things because what helped you get through your grief?
Okay. Well, quite a few things, really. I mean, people helped. And some friends were just wonderful because they gave practical help.
Yes, I like that.
And you see, I mean, I had no appetite. I couldn't eat a thing. I'd lost masses of weight during my husband's illness. And then, you know, after he died, I guess I was in a state of shock. I just couldn't think about food at all. And I didn't have the energy to actually get myself any food. But friends came round with food already on a plate, and they put it in front of me, and they sat down and they said, eat that.
Yeah.
And that was wonderful. Really good.
Oh. And that's what real friends do.
Yeah, real friends and family.
Yes, that's
My
true.
children were great. Another thing was I found that friends who came and talked about Patrick, my husband, and said, oh, golly, do you remember when he did that? And, oh, wasn't it annoying? And I got so cross with him when, you know, I loved that. I hated it when people came round or met me and sort of pretended that it hadn't happened and didn't talk about him.
Yeah. I agree with you there. I think that's why I always say the more you talk about something, it actually, for me, the more you talk about something, it actually helps you heal.
Absolutely.
You know, so I think that's a beautiful thing that they done. I agree with it. So let's talk about one of the subjects that I love to talk about, which is forgiveness. Sometimes when we're going through things like this, we have a hard time of forgiving ourselves for maybe we didn't spend enough time with that person, or things that we may have done that we might feel a little bit of regret for. What does forgiveness mean to you? But also, how has it helped you in your life with everything that you have been through?
Gosh, that's a very interesting question, Savia. And I agree with you. I mean, I think that forgiveness of ourselves and others is incredibly important. And in fact, Patrick was a very forgiving man, and he sort of was a great example to me of someone who would forgive people who had hurt or harmed him in any way. And I had to learn to forgive myself, because I somehow thought that I should have been able to stop Patrick getting this cancer.
Okay.
I don't think that's very logical or rational, but I kept on thinking, if only I'd done this, if only I'd done that, if only I'd insisted that he went for a health check when he was 70, you know. And I really, really beat myself up about all of this. It took me a long time to sort of think, look, it was as it was. You loved him, he loved you, and it wasn't your fault.
No, it wasn't. Sometimes there are greater powers in the universe that take away people that we love, not out of spite. It's just because it's their time. And when it is their time, I think you realize how much you really do love them. Like, I mean, utterly love them. And even coming from my generation, when my friends say to me someone that they love passes away, I see how my generation deals with it. You know, because different generations deal with things in different ways, but also people as individuals deal with things in different ways. And love is endless, like we've said so many times before. Love is an endless power. And love is one of the best things that you can have in your entire life, because it can conquer everything. And I think, this is just my personal opinion, that if you have had the chance to love someone, Louise, as much as I can see that you have loved your husband, then you are the luckiest person in the world. And the reason why I say that is because there are millions of people in the world who would have loved to find that one person. But even though that person has gone, and it doesn't always fill the gap by me saying this, but I feel that people like yourself have a beautiful story to tell, because you are the person that we would go to find out what real love and forgiveness is. So that's just me to you.
Well, Savia, I didn't know what it was like to love and be loved until I met Patrick and we got together. And I was 52.
Hey, there's no age with it, as long as you find it.
Well, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I'd been in other relationships. I'd been married before, but I hadn't known what real love was.
I totally know.
And I feel very lucky and blessed that I had it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. What are the early signs of knowing that you have, because you write about this in your book, but what are the early signs of knowing that you have grief or bereavement? Because sometimes people don't know, they just carry on. Remember, we all handle things in a different way. But what would you say are the early warning signs of knowing?
Knowing about grief?
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, I think that when someone you love dies, you're just plunged down into the ravine. You just fall into it. And I think that our brains take a long time to actually understand what has happened. And I think we're rather numb to start with.
That's true.
I mean, do you know, for months afterwards, I would catch a sight of the car that Patrick used to drive out the corner of my eye, and I would think, oh, there's Patrick, you know? Because it just took a long, long time for me to emotionally understand that he was no longer in a physical body.
Do you ever feel that he's next to you spiritually? I don't know if you're necessarily a spiritual person, but do you ever feel that his spiritual side is with you, even in the house or when you're going for a walk or just anywhere? Do you ever feel it?
Yes.
I like that.
A lot.
I like that. I like that.
No, I often feel that he's around, and yeah, and I often feel that he's sort of holding me in.
What is the funny? I would love to ask you a question about Patrick. What is the funniest thing that Patrick has ever done that made you laugh in hysterics about him?
Oh goodness. I'll have to think.
Oh,
I mean, we used to dance in the kitchen, you know, when the radio was on, and he could do a very sexy dance,
hey, go on, Patrick.
and it was very funny. It really was.
Oh, that's super cool. I would love to have seen that. Oh man. Do you ever think that you would find peace within yourself? I know you carry on every day, as we all do. But do you ever believe that you will find the ultimate peace within yourself to be okay, if there is such a thing as being okay? But
Yes,
yeah,
and I actually have found it.
I like it.
It's 3 years now
Mm-hmm.
since Patrick died, and it took 2 or 3 years for me to begin to look forward to the rest of my life.
Okay.
But now maybe it's all the meditation.
Possibly.
I don't know.
Possibly.
But yeah, but I feel peaceful inside.
How was it for you to write the book, for example? I know we talk about you getting the book done, but how was it for you emotionally connecting to the book and actually writing it?
I think it was probably quite cathartic. I enjoyed writing it. It came very easily, and I guess that it made me feel close to Patrick writing about it all.
Oh, what would your advice be to anybody who might be going through something similar, because it's a part of life? What would you say?
Yes, we all die. Well, I would say carry on feeling the love,
I agree.
and carry on loving, and carry on talking to the person, and be open to any signs that they send, and let your friends and family care for you, and don't try and not feel the pain, because I think all that does is it sort of bottles it up. I think feel the pain and realize that it's okay to feel the pain. It's the price of the love, if you like.
I like that. That sounds like a really good quote, actually. That's something that you should write down and keep. That resonates with me a lot. That really does. What would you do differently in your life if you had the chance to do anything differently? Is there anything that you would say that you would do differently in your life now?
You mean going back in the past?
You could go
Or
back in the past.
future?
You can do either. You can do the past or the future. It would be interesting to hear what you would say about both.
Okay. Well, for the past, I guess that I stayed too long in a job that I'd stopped really enjoying. And I think that I should have left earlier and found something else to do. So I can't tell you now what that would have been. So, and for the future, I don't know.
Ah!
I just don't know.
The fact that
But
you have a smile on your face is a good sign.
Well, I would like some adventures, and who knows? I have no idea. It's a total open book.
I like that. I think we'll have a podcast too about that one. I think so. What are you most proud of that you stand for as an individual in this world?
I'm very proud of my children and my family and my stepchildren and their family. And I think I'm proud of the fact that I have been a sort of loving, kind mother and friend.
I like that. They're rare these days. So when you find a good one, yep, you hug them and squeeze them as much as you can. If there was one song that you believe was the soundtrack of your life, what one song would you choose, and why would you choose that particular song?
Okay. Well, I think the Platters
Oh,
and love and Smoke Gets in Your Eyes,
yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
because it's just such a lovely romantic song, and Patrick and I, we had it as the first song to dance to at our wedding.
Ah,
Yeah.
I like that. Aw. If there was one quote that represented you as a person, what quote would you choose?
Sorry, there's a long silence, which isn't very good on a podcast, is it?
Oh, we could edit that out.
But that's lucky.
Hey.
One quote. I have tried my best.
It's good enough.
Yeah.
That is good enough. What is the best advice you believe that you have ever received from? I know we have different advice, especially when we're going through different situations in our life that help us. But what do you believe one of the best advice has ever been from anybody that you have spoken to?
I think don't be scared.
I like that.
And, it's terribly easy to stay in bad situations or with the wrong people because you're scared of stepping out. But you've just got to think, okay, I can do it and I will do it. Actually, I suppose that what I'm saying really is feel the fear and do it anyway. And that book, was a revelation to me, actually, when I read it, because I'd thought that if you were scared of something, then, that was a perfectly good reason not to do something.
Aww.
And that book made me realize, no,
Aww.
you do it.
I like that. I definitely do. I only have two more for you, Louise. And that is, when did you realize that language had an abundance of power?
I think I've always known that.
I like it.
Yeah. And it does. It most certainly does. And it matters. Though it's not only the language, it's also the intent behind the language.
Yes.
And, some words can appear unpleasant or pejorative, but if they're said with a different intent and a kind intent, in fact, friendly intent, then I don't think they're so objectionable. Whereas fairly innocent words can be said with a malicious intent.
Yes.
And that is horrid.
Yes, that is definitely so true. It's so good. You said that so well. And my last question for you, Louise, is I would love for people to be able to find your book. Like, I have had the privilege of reading your book. Guys, I actually got 2 copies. I was really lucky. So I got 2 copies. So, Louise, I would love for you to let people know where they can find and buy your book, but also if you have any social media or websites that they can go to find out more about your book, or even just contact you, because we all go through this in our life. We're all gonna go through it at some point in our life. But I would love for people to be able to even speak to you, you know?
Well, I've got a website which is louisehamlin.co.uk, and in fact I invite people to contact me with their stories and everything, and so that's lovely. And in fact the book is published tomorrow.
Hey!
So you can buy it tomorrow from wherever. I mean, obviously it's on Amazon and on Waterstones and Barnes and Noble if you're in the States, but any good bookseller will be able to get it for you.
See,
and
guys,
it's called WhatsApps from Heaven.
See, I love that. See, and what a beautiful title as well. It just takes everything to a whole different perspective. Louise, this is where I want to say to you, thank you so much for your abundance of kindness, your compassion, but also showing the world what real love looks like. Because just from, even though I've been the only one to have the privilege of see your emotions, I know for a fact that love is a beautiful thing when you do find it. So guys, if you ever find love out there and it is real, you will know, because you will just feel that sparkle in your heart, in your eyes, and everywhere else. So Louise, I want to thank you again so much for coming on the show. You have been an absolutely beautiful guest.
Well, Savia, thank you so much. And I've really enjoyed your questions, and I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Oh,
And a million thank yous.
anytime. Guys, I want to thank you so much for listening to the As People podcast, and please remember you can subscribe and leave us a review on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and any other platform that you prefer listening to. Please also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and you can also donate to the As People podcast by simply going to the Savia Rocks website or just typing in paypal.me/Us People podcast. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Stay happy, stay positive, and as always, please continue to be kind to one another.
Through the darkness of the night, you'll be guided through the light.
Carry on feeling the love, and carry on loving, and carry on talking to the person, and be open to any signs that they send, and let your friends and family care for you, and don't try and not feel the pain, because I think all that does is it sort of bottles it up. I think feel the pain and realize that it's okay to feel the pain. It's the price of the love, if you like.
We're just soaring through this journey, leaving fear far behind. Our hearts are full of courage. You can win if you try. Redirect the yes to you. You'll see the power of yes. If you try.